You weren't betrayed by an enemy. No, it was something softer. A gentle smile, a warm gaze, a kind word spoken at the exact moment you needed comfort most. You believed it because the world raised you on a lie. A lie that told you if you were kind enough, patient enough, and good enough, the world would respond in kind. It told you that love meant honesty, vulnerability created loyalty, and that being real would always be rewarded. But now, here you are, left with the aftermath. A heart torn apart by people who smiled as they did it, and a mind bruised, not by fists, but by silence, by disappointment, by slow erosion. You're not stupid. No, you were trained to believe that sincerity guarantees safety. You thought if your intentions were pure, you couldn't lose. But you did, and you learned the hard way. It's a rule Machiavelli taught 500 years ago. Men aren't driven by goodness, but by necessity. They don't stay because they love you. They stay because it's convenient. They stay because you don't ask, because your silence makes it easier. And when they've taken everything they can from you, they vanish, quietly, without warning or apology, leaving you to wonder, was your kindness a mistake? Was your warmth a weakness? Were you too soft for a world this sharp? Let me make something clear. This is not a video for comfort seekers. It's not another one of those be your best self monologues. This is a war, fought in silence, fought without you even realizing you were losing. If you've been drained by being too available, too forgiving, too easy to read, then listen closely. If you've ever asked yourself, why do the manipulators always win? Why do the good ones always end up bleeding? Why does giving everything get me nothing? Then stop right now. Look again, but not through the eyes of a dreamer. Look through the eyes of a strategist. Here, we don't teach you how to be softer. No, we teach you how to be sharper, more dangerous, without ever raising your voice. It begins by unlearning the oldest lie you've ever swallowed, that goodness guarantees protection. It doesn't. What protects you is presence, perception, and power. Now ask yourself, are you ready to take it back? It doesn't bruise, it doesn't bleed, but it breaks something deep inside you, quietly. It's the kind of pain that doesn't scream because it was never allowed to. It whispers, it festers, it grows in silence because you were taught to call it strength. People look at you, calm, composed, reasonable, and assume you're untouched, untouchable. They see your patience and call it wisdom. They see your forgiveness and call it virtue. They see your stillness and assume you're at peace. But what they don't see, what they'll never see, is the cost of staying so still. The truth is, you've been touched more times than you'd like to admit. Not by violence, but by erosion. People leaned on your empathy until it drained out of you. They took your compassion as permission. They mistook your loyalty for blindness. And the worst part, you let them. Not because you were weak, but because you were hopeful. You believed they would change. You thought if you stayed soft, eventually they'd soften too. You thought kindness would protect you. You thought understanding would earn you peace. You thought that if you kept showing up, someone, someday, would show up for you. But no one did. And still, you stayed, because that's what you were taught to do. Stay kind, stay good, stay available, even when it hurts, even when it kills you slowly. So, you shrank. You quieted your needs. You became the easy one, the peacekeeper, the forgiver, the one who never asked for too much, the one who stayed even when no one noticed you were slipping. And the world, it applauded you. They called you mature, wise beyond your years. But what they really meant was, you're convenient. You don't make us uncomfortable. They praised your endurance, not because it was noble, but because it let them off the hook. So, you carried their pain and buried your own. You called it strength, but deep down, you knew something was dying. Because real strength is not in being silent, it's in being clear. It's not in staying when it hurts, it's in knowing when to walk away. Machiavelli would have told you the truth. He'd say if your silence keeps the peace, but costs you your soul, it is not virtue, it is surrender. And how many times have you surrendered? Not in battle, but in the everyday betrayals of yourself. In the conversations where your truth sat burning on your tongue, but you swallowed it. In the relationships where you knew the pattern, but chose to stay predictable. And why? Because you were afraid of being too much, afraid of the silence that might follow your boundaries, afraid of looking like the villain in someone else's story. But let me ask you this, who's been the villain in yours? Who benefited from the version of you that never fought back? Who rewrote your story by rewarding your compliance with temporary peace? Here's the bitter truth. You've been bleeding quietly and calling it strength. But bleeding is not strength. It's a signal, a warning, a red flag you've ignored for far too long. You think if you just keep enduring, it will get better. But endurance without recognition is not love. It's erasure. And you deserve more than being erased in someone else's comfort. So, this is your permission to stop performing peace for people who thrive on your silence. Stop shrinking so others feel tall. Stop mistaking availability for virtue. Let them say you've changed. Let them call you distant, cold, unrecognizable. That's what people say when they lose access to the version of you that never said no. You are not their mirror anymore, not their comfort, not their emotional sponge. You are something else now, something heavier, sharper, stronger, unbreakable. You are sovereign, and this is only the beginning. You thought it was your fault, that maybe you were just too trusting, too soft, too available, too much of one thing and not enough of something else. But what if I told you it wasn't just you? What if I told you that this wasn't random, but engineered? You were conditioned to lose, not through violence, but through emotional architecture. A system that exploits the very traits you were praised for. Let's get something straight. You weren't born soft. You were trained to be. From the moment you could speak, you were rewarded for being agreeable, for smiling when it hurt, for staying quiet when something felt wrong, for saying yes when every cell in your body screamed no. And every time you complied, you were told, "Good job." That's maturity. That's how you get along. What they were really saying was, that's how you make yourself easy to manage. You were programmed to believe that comfort equals connection, that pleasing others means you'll be protected, that being liked is safer than being respected. And so your nervous system adapted. It memorized a rule no one said out loud. Don't make things difficult. So now, you flinch at confrontation. You apologize for your tone, even when you didn't say anything wrong. You explain yourself again and again, hoping to be understood. That's not personality. That's programming. And the world? It doesn't just tolerate that programming. It feeds on it. Look around. We glorify self-sacrifice. We romanticize being the bigger person. We praise those who give endlessly and abandon them the moment they need something back. You think they love your goodness, but what they love is your predictability. Because here's what Machiavelli knew, long before modern psychology gave it a name. He who reveals his intentions has already surrendered. In other words, transparency is currency, and you've been giving it away cheaply. Every time you explain your pain, hoping for compassion. Every time you justify your standards to avoid being called difficult.